5th, 2026. Calling the meeting to order. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Lepper? Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Chair Keeney?
Here.
Sylvester and Stratton are approved as absent.
Okay. We have no closed session reports tonight, and we'll move on to our consent calendar, which consists of the minutes of our regular Planning Commission meeting from April 7th, 2026. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine, will be enacted by general consent unless any commissioner requests a roll call vote or unless any member of the commission staff or audience wishes to remove an item for discussion. Would anyone like to remove an item from our minutes for further discussion? All right, seeing no one calling for that, can I have a, general consent? All in favor of approving the minutes from our last meeting, please say aye.
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 No opposed? Nothing pulled from our consent calendar. We'll move to items of interest to the public and public comment on non-agenda items. This portion of the meeting is reserved for people wishing to address the commission on any matter not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. State law prohibits the Commission from acting on items not listed on the agenda except by special action of the Planning Commission under specified circumstances. Would any member of the audience like to address the Commission on a non-agenda item? All right, none. We'll move on to written communications on non-agenda items. We have none of those tonight, right? Okay. Breezing right along to number 8. We have no presentations or educational workshops, so we'll move right on to our environmental assessments and public hearings. And first up is 9.1. This is a general plan amendment, GPA 2602, and a zone change, ZC 2602, to apply a housing opportunity overlay to 2 parcels on Green Valley Road. The recommendation is for us to adopt a mitigated negative declaration. And I'll turn it over to you, Mrs. Kendrick, for the staff report.
Thank you, Chair Keeney and members of the Planning Commission. Presenting item 9.1, which is a general plan amendment and a zone change and a mitigated negative declaration for the application of the housing opportunity overlay to the properties at 7444 and 7460 Green Valley Road. Before I get into the presentation, I would like to reiterate that there is no development project proposed tonight. This item is strictly a legislative action to amend the general plan, land use map, and zoning map. We are not approving any specific site plan, building design, or construction at this time. Any future multifamily development on this site would require a separate discretionary or ministerial application, an additional environmental review as appropriate, and a full public noticing as required by state law. So as you know, the city adopted its 2021 through 2029 housing element in 2021 with amendments in 2022, which was certified by the California Department of Housing and Community Development. Program A3 of that housing element specifically identifies this 3.27 acre site as one of the 3 priority locations for high-density housing to help meet our regional housing needs allocation, commonly referred to as RHNA. In December of 2025, HCD sent a letter to the city regarding delayed implementation of Program A3 and other programs. Applying the housing opportunity overlay to this site is a direct and important step towards maintaining our housing element compliance and avoiding potential consequences such as loss of funding, eligibility, or other state enforcement actions. The housing opportunity overlay is currently in the Placerville Municipal Code, Section 10-5-24. It is an optional zoning tool already in our code. It provides a ministerial by right pathway for multifamily residential development at densities of 20 to 24 dwelling units per acre with objective design standards such as 40-foot height limit, 60% max lot coverage, and 1.5 parking spaces per unit. And at least 50 of those units on the site would be required to be affordable, which is minimum 30% of very low income and 20% of low income. The site totals 3.27 acres, and it's currently zoned commercial. It has a general plan land use designation as high-density residential and contains an existing single-family home. The proposed action would change the designations to provide an HO on the end of both the general plan designation and the zoning designation. So it'd be C-HO and HDR-HO. Maps showing the existing and proposed designations are in attachment B of the staff report. The city had an initial study mitigated negative declaration prepared in its attachment C to the staff report. This ISMND found that the map amendments could result in potentially significant impacts in areas such as biological resources, cultural resources, geology, soils, hydrology, noise, and wildfire. However, with incorporated mitigation measures, all impacts were reduced to a level of less than significant. Staff also received and responded to comments from the Department of Toxic Substance Control, which is attachment J to the staff report, regarding demolition and imported fill protocols. Those would be applied to any future development project. We also received 2 comment letters during the review period. A letter from the neighbor Pamela Krause, which is attachment I, expressing concerns about potential future noise, privacy, traffic, and construction impacts. Staff prepared a detailed response in the staff report addressing these points, noting that the topographic buffer, the 40-foot height limit, construction hour restrictions, and that no project is currently proposed. The second letter was the letter from the Department of Toxic Substance Control, which I addressed as noted previously. So staff's recommendation is that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council adopt a resolution recommending the approval of the mitigated negative declaration, recommendation that the City Council approve General Plan Amendment 26-02, recommend that the City Council introduce and waive the first reading of the ordinance approving Zone Change 2602. This action implements a key housing element commitment and helps address our regional housing needs and positions the city to maintain compliance with state law, all while not approving an actual development project tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and I can walk through the attachments or maps in more detail if you'd like.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate you going over the requirements for why we're doing this at this time to be in compliance so that we don't lose control over our zoning. And as well as funding opportunities for housing. And so this is complying and living up to agreements that the City Council made several years ago regarding our housing element. And I just would like you to state or clarify for the record, I asked this the last time we had a housing overlay opportunity case before us. The underlying zoning, which is commercial, that remains, so that if an entity purchased that parcel, they could still come to the city and say, we want to do a commercial development, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so this just adds, it maintains that, it changes the name of the zone, but it adds this additional opportunity to do housing instead of commercial, depending on who comes forward first.
Correct.
Okay. I have no questions at this time. Do either of you have questions for staff on the report or any of the attachments?
I have none.
No? Okay. At this time, we'll open it up for comments from the public on this item 9.1. Is anyone here to speak? Anyway, we have one person who would like to speak. Good evening. If you would, please state your name for the record.
Good
And,
evening.
and please speak into the microphone. I'm hard of hearing.
My name is Dr. Candace Rapp, and I own 7460 and 7476 Green Valley Road. So I am wishing to appeal the rezoning. 2 years ago, I submitted a project to build a new veterinary hospital because we're working out of one that's pretty aged out and too small for our circumstances now. So we wanted to expand our veterinary hospital, and it was met with a plethora of requests from the stakeholders, including traffic mitigation. When I read the report that you guys presented, it clearly stated that there was no traffic impact, that it was only going to be increasing the traffic flow by 5.6%, which was negligible. And I disagree with that. I was requested to put in turn lanes and maybe even a traffic signal at Mallard, but yet adding these homes is going to have a negative, or I feel going to have a negative impact on the traffic flow. I also wish to not have it rezoned to preserve my future project. Now, I understand that it's not going to change the commercial status, which I appreciate, but I feel like when I do get this project to go through the Planning Commission completely, you guys may decide to pull it because of that future overlay. So, like I said, I wish to appeal it and have further discussion on it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your comments. Is anyone else here to comment on 9.1? Okay. I'd like Ms. Kendrick to address that. I think I could answer it, but you know this so much better than I do. We're talking about two different things, a more specific project, what she had to talk about versus a theoretical overlay. So if you'd like to address some of her concerns.
Correct. So there's not going to be a formal decision made tonight. This is just a recommendation to the City Council. This item is proposed to go to the City Council on May 26th, where they'll be making a final decision. That will be the first reading for the zone change and then tentative approval of the general plan amendment. And then we'd come back for a second reading in the first meeting in June. So you would not be able to appeal that process until there's action taken. I would like to reiterate that the council in 2022 agreed to do this as part of the housing element, and they are just completing that task that is required by the state of California. And when it comes to affordable housing, the state has stepped in and taken away a lot of the requirements. So a lot of times these affordable projects don't have to do CEQA. They don't have to meet the standard parking requirements of a multifamily market rate project. And so there's a lot of concessions that the state has made when it comes to projects regarding affordable multifamily housing. But you're welcome to appeal after the Planning City Council makes a decision.
And I also had a question about you mentioned turn lanes. If and when a project comes before the city, and it would happen to be a housing opportunity as opposed to a commercial opportunity like you were describing, at that point, the city then looks at the project and would address things like if there would be a need for a turn lane or there would need a need for improvements as far as the circulation. But the statement in the initial study is that the number of cars is not a significant increase from the traffic that's currently seen. But if there was a project, our city engineer would address the need for mitigating an impact like that?
they would evaluate it and determine if there's a nexus to require improvements. So again, with these types of projects, there's a lot of the local control's been taken away because the state wants to advance housing projects. So it depends on the type of project and the scope. It could be something that's ministerial, that is done by right, that would not come back to the Planning Commission.
No, it wouldn't, but engineering would take a look at,
Well, they would have to submit building plans, and so we would send that up to engineering, but again, there would have to be a nexus to require those improvements.
okay. But that would be over on the city side, looking at an actual project that was brought before them.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate that. It is a little confusing because we don't have an actual plan before us tonight. We're just talking about a theoretical, a change to our zone, to our maps. Okay. Any other, I hope we've, I'll just ask that perhaps you could work with staff. Once we have people stand down from, I know there's only one person here, but if there is an error, please work with staff to make sure that that's correct. Thank you. Appreciate your patience. Okay, and no one else in the audience has a comment on 9.1. Okay, we'll bring it back for possible action here. Very straightforward. We've done this before. This is just keeping us in conformance with our housing element and with the requirements from the state. So, any other comments?
I think we're all sensitive to public concerns, but the issue is that there's no specific proposal that's before us for a building project. So if there is and when there is, then those concerns can be addressed. Because
Correct.
that's what we went through before.
Correct. Well, can we get a motion for action?
Sure. Yeah, and I'll echo what Kirk said, is that, I'm very sensitive to exactly the points that you brought up, but unfortunately, with the requirements of the state, we need to ensure that we're in conformity so that we don't get further penalized for not being so. Okay. So I would like to make a motion that the City Council adopt a mitigated negative declaration pursuant to the CEQA, finding that all potentially significant impacts have been mitigated to less than significant levels. Recommend that the City Council approve a resolution for General Plan Amendment 26-02 to amend the General Plan land use designation from high-density residential to high-density residential housing opportunity overlay for the 3.27 acre site at 7444 and 7460 Green Valley Road, and recommend that the City Council introduce and waive the first reading of an ordinance approving zone change 26-02 to amend the zoning map from commercial to commercial housing opportunity overlay for the same site.
Thank you. We have a motion,
Second,
and I have a second from Mr. Smith. And before we go to the vote, I just want to acknowledge the content of the letter that we did receive from the Kraus, Ms. Kraus, that was mentioned in the staff report, and their concerns were addressed in the staff report. But as far as the Planning Commission, again, we're very sensitive to her concern about the noise, and there are mitigations in the mitigation monitoring reporting plan from the initial study document. And also, I think it's important to point out that the commercial zone doesn't go away, so that there's a possibility in the future that these quiet woodland parcels could be developed in one of two different manners, either as housing or as commercial. In either case, there would be construction, and I'm sensitive to their concerns about how they like their peaceful house, but you look at the map and you realize that it's like they have a special situation. They're surrounded by commercial and high-density residential, and it's just the facts of this case. So that either way, if that, those parcels do get developed, there's going to be some noise, and of course, then the city does its very best to minimize that and minimize the impact to the sensitive receptors in the area. So I just wanted to make sure that we address that during the hearing. Any other comments? Anything else we've overlooked?
Not that I know of.
Okay, please call the vote.
Commissioner Lepper,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Chair Keeney.
Aye. So 3-0 to send this to the city council. And Ms. Genscher, thanks for explaining the administrative path that this will take, waiving the first reading and so on. We will move on to item 9.2. This is a conditional use permit, CUP 2601, variances 2601 and 2602 for the Sequoia Mansion at 643 B Street. And I, again, will turn it over to you, Ms. Kendrick, for the staff report on this item.
Good evening, Chair Keeney and Commissioners. Item 9.2 is the conditional use permit and 2 variances. That is a request to legalize the existing building use from a restaurant to an event venue. I know it's a long time coming. With their previous approval for the restaurant, they had required amount of parking that were proposed to be on site. Some of the parking is not able to be done based on some topography, and so the applicant is requesting that those be removed from the restaurant site plan. And then they have a shed in the front yard, and it's encroaching into the setback, and so they're asking to have that remain. So again, it's a parking reduction, allowing the shed to remain in the setback, and then legalizing the wedding venue. The site plan has been added to the staff report as attachment A for your reference. This project is categorically exempt. Staff has received 2 written public comments, which are included as attachments B and C, one supportive from the adjacent neighbor to the west with some conditions regarding the shed and parking, and one from a rear neighbor regarding nighttime kitchen vent noise and early morning garbage pickup. There are some concerns with also public safety access. The reason this item is being continued is we're waiting for the formal parking agreements with 2 churches, and my understanding is with El Dorado High School, as they have very minimal parking on site for an event, a large event venue. So we're waiting on that. I did receive 2 of those late today, and we'll be looking over those. I believe we do have one of the applicant's representatives here tonight. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission open the public hearing, take public testimony, and continue to our next meeting pending the applicant securing the formal parking agreements. At this time, unless there are members of the public who wish to speak on this item, staff recommends, unless there are members of the public who do not wish to speak on the item, staff would recommend proceeding to continue without further discussion this evening. And again, this will give the applicant time to secure the final parking agreement. This concludes my brief presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you providing us the site plan. It helped me put the comments that we have received in better context to just kind of see what's going on. And I appreciate that what could come before us at the next meeting could be much different than what might otherwise have been presented tonight. Do either of you have questions about the staff report?
No.
Okay, and is anyone in the audience here to speak to 9.2, the Sequoia Mansion project? Okay, seeing none. So do we need to take a vote to continue it, or have a motion to continue it?
Yes, you would need to make a motion
Okay.
to continue it. My recommendation is to continue it to our May 19th meeting.
Okay, can we get such a motion to continue this to May 19th?
I'd like to make a motion to continue this item to a date certain of May 19th, 2026.
Second?
Okay, thank you both. Further discussion? No? Please call the vote.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Lepper,
Aye.
and Chair Keeney.
Aye. All right. And I want to thank both of the letter writers, Mr. Ciccatini and Mr. Musker, for participating and letting us know about their concerns to make this a better project. We'll move on to 9.3, which is a zoning ordinance, 2602, amending Title 10, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, Chapter 7, and Chapter 8 of the Placerville Zoning Code. I'll turn this over again to you, Ms. Kendrick, for the staff report.
Thank you, Chair Keeney and Commissioners. I know these are a lot of changes, but one thing that staff has noticed is that we're lacking findings. In doing research on old staff reports, there were kind of different findings that were made. And so in order to make this consistent, we are proposing amendments. So the purpose of the amendment is to modernize and standardize findings across variances, conditional use permits, minor deviations, site plan reviews, and subdivision and parcel map actions. To codify clear procedures and findings for general plan amendments and zone change, which previously were not fully consolidated into the code. Improve consistency, transparency, and defensibility of land use decisions, and align Title 12 with state law, including Government Section 65358 and 66474. Standardizing findings and procedures is essential for planning to reduce ambiguity in staff reports, improve defensibility of decisions, reduce processing time, and maintain compliance with state law despite limited capacity. This amendment helps planning work more efficiently and consistently with the resources that we have. Importantly, this amendment does not change permitted uses, development standards, densities, or approval authority. It strictly clarifies what findings must be made before approvals can be granted. So a summary of the changes for variances, it's been updated to 5 clear findings addressing hardship, exceptional circumstances, no special privilege, no detriment, and a general plan consistency. For conditional use permits, we've provided 11 findings that include zoning compatibility, physical suitability of the site, adequacy of services, general plan consistency, and environmental justice finding, as well as many more. Our minor deviations adds positive approval findings and aligns with government code standards. Site plan review, streamlined findings focusing on Title 10 consistency, general plan consistency, non-detriment to health, safety, and welfare, and CEQA compliance. The subdivision and parcel map findings, which is Chapter 7 and 8, adds explicit findings for disapproval consistent with Government Code Section 66474. New section for general plan amendments, which codifies initiation, planning commission hearing, city council hearing, and required findings, as well as new section 10.3-14 for zone changes, which does the same as general plan amendments. Clarification on site suitability. This finding requires the commission to consider whether the physical characteristics of the site can be reasonably support the proposed use. Examples include topography, steep slopes, unstable soils, excessive grading requirements, inability to meet driveway slope or fire access standards. Given Placerville's foothill terrain, challenging topography can be a legitimate basis for denial if substantial evidence shows the site cannot safely or feasibly support the use. Other physical constraints include flood hazards or drainage limitations, limited access or inadequate frontage, insufficient area for required parking or circulation, geologic hazards such as rockfall, erosion, and faulting, and proximity to sensitive environmental resources. This ensures approvals are based on site-specific realities, not just zoning allowances. To provide a little bit more clarification on the Subdivision Map Act inverse findings, under Government Code Section 66474, a local agency must deny a tentative subdivision map if any one of the statutory findings for denial can be made based on substantial evidence. These are often called inverse findings because they are the opposite of what we would be required for approval. In practice, approval is presumed unless one of the mandatory denial findings applies. Even if one inverse finding can be made, such an inconsistency with the general plan or physical unsuitability of the site or likely environmental or safety impacts, denial is mandatory. If none apply, the map must be approved with conditions as needed. The new language in 10.7.6 is for subdivisions, and I apologize, there was no heading there. Again, going through Title 10 and trying to capture all these and make sure I didn't have too much other items in there. The new language for subdivisions and parcel maps, which is 10-8, mirror the statutory requirements. A question came up on the approval authority for tentative subdivision maps, which is in Chapter 7. The zoning ordinance does not explicitly identify the approval authority for tentative subdivision maps. Across California, some jurisdictions assign approval authority to the Planning Commission, others assign approval authority to the City Council, and some use a hybrid model with Planning Commission acts first and Council hears appeals. Because Chapter 7 does not currently specify the approval body, this creates ambiguity. This zone change, or the zoning ordinance amendment, does not change approval authority, but it does highlight the need for a future cleanup to explicitly identify whether the Planning Commission or the City Council is the decision maker for tentative maps in Placerville. Staff has seen both models used in different cities, and clarifying this in the future, in a future ordinance update or as part of this update with direction from the City Council, would improve transparency and predictability for applicants and for the public. This amendment is exempt from CEQA under Guidelines Section 15060, C2 and 3 because it's regulatory clarification with no potential impacts to the environment. So at this time, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the findings in the staff report. And I would like to note, it has been brought to staff's attention that there's some other capitalization and some other minor cleanup that we will be providing as this item moves forward to City Council. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. And I understand that you're addressing something that's kind of been languishing in our code and bringing it up into more current standards, and I really appreciate the work that you did on this. And it is very picayune. And you mentioned about who has authority over subdivision maps, and I appreciate that this is something you see the city needs to pursue a little bit further, because I did get a little confused as to why suddenly City Council had authority over the subdivision, whereas Planning Commission has authority over tentative maps, and so clarification, I think, is warranted.
So, and the code talks about final maps, which of course go to City Council, but it doesn't really address the approval authority for tentative maps. So, like I said, it would really be up to the City Council's direction on who would be the final decision maker. I've worked in jurisdictions where tentatives go to Council, and I've worked in jurisdictions where they're approved by the Planning Commission, but that is something that needs to be clarified. I know with the parcel maps, the tentative parcel maps, that's done administratively for the Subdivision Map Act.
Administratively, wow, okay. Options. I have no questions for you at this time. Do either of you have questions about the staff report?
No, I don't.
I do not.
Okay, at this time we'll open it up for public comment on item 9.3, the zoning ordinance amendments. Anyone here to speak to that? No. Okay. We'll close the public comment portion of this. and bring it back for possible action by the commission. Very straightforward. I appreciate you commenting that you recognize there's some typos as you were putting different pieces together for our review tonight, so it'll get, in its final version, it'll be consistent, and and as we move through the process, it'll just be improved. So thank you for acknowledging that. Any other discussion?
I have none.
Okay, can we get a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we make the following findings in support of zoning ordinance amendment 26-02. The proposed zoning ordinance amendment is consistent with the goals, policies, and objectives of the City of Placerville General Plan. The proposed amendments will not adversely affect surrounding properties. The proposed zoning ordinance amendment promotes public health, safety, and general welfare and serves the goals and purposes of the zoning ordinance per proposed section 10.3.14, findings and existing code. And to recommend that the City Council approve or approve with modifications zoning ordinance amendment 26-02 and introduce and waive the first reading of the ordinance amending Title 10 of the Placerville Municipal Code as presented in Attachment A.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
A second from Mr. Smith. Please call the vote. Oh, wait, any further comment? All right, please call the vote.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Lepper,
Aye.
Chair Keeney.
Aye. Very good.
Good time for a break.
Okay, it's 6:37. Let's reconvene at 6:45. Okay, thanks for letting me. Okay, 6:45. I'm calling the meeting back to order, and we'll move on to item 9.4, which is a historic design review, 2601 for 2896 Clay Street. And again, if you're ready, Ms. Kendrick, with the staff report, please proceed.
I'm ready. Good evening, Chair Keeney and Commissioners. Presenting item 9.4, which is a historic design review, 26-01 for 2896 Clay Street. The request before you is a historic design review for exterior modifications to a single-family residence located within the Bedford Avenue and Clay Street Historic District. The scope includes the replacement of 19 failing windows, replacement of deteriorated siding, repair or replacement of the garage door, repairs to the deck and fencing, and replacement of the fascia, gutters, and removal of the vinyl soffit to expose the original rafter tails. This project also includes a request for a CEQA exemption under Section 15301, which applies to minor alterations to existing structures. This home was constructed in 1940 and is visible from Clay Street. It is located within the Bedford Clay Street Historic District. However, it is not listed in the city's historic resource inventory. The staff report previously stated that the structure is classified as a non-contributor. However, it was brought to staff's attention that the city does not yet have an adopted classification for contributors and non-contributors within historic districts. That work has been requested by the City Council but has not yet been completed. A more accurate statement, and one I recommend we use in finding 2, is that the structure could be considered a non-contributor because it is not named in the existing inventory and lacks remaining historical features. Commissioners also asked whether any original exterior elements remain. Based on the applicant's submittal and staff's site review, no original windows remain. The existing windows are single-pane aluminum units, most of which are broken or failing. The original siding is no longer restorable. The home currently has vinyl siding installed over asbestos cement shingles, which were installed over the original redwood clapboard. The building inspector confirmed the original clapboard cannot be restored due to the deterioration. The soffit is not original. Removing it will actually restore a craftsman appropriate feature by exposing the original rafter tails. Given the absence of intact historic materials, the project functions as a rehabilitation using compatible replacement materials rather than a restoration of original fabric. This strengthens the case for the approval under the Secretary of the Interior standards. Staff evaluated the project under zoning ordinance sections 10-4-9 and 10-4-10, which require Planning Commission review of exterior alterations visible from the street within a historic district. The project is consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards, particularly Standard 2. No distinctive historic materials are being removed because none remain. Standard 6, replacement materials match the old in design and appearance where possible. And Standard 9, alterations are compatible in scale, proportion, and massing. We do have a concern with the earth tone requirement. The proposed trim color is glacier white, while the siding color is flagship is earth tone incompatible. The trim color is not consistent with the earth tone preferences that appear throughout the city code and historic district guidance. Staff acknowledges the inconsistency, and the commission may approve the project with a condition requiring an earth tone trim color, or approve as provided if the commission finds the overall compatibility sufficient given the home's lack of historic features and its potential status as a non-contributor. Staff is prepared to modify conditions based on the commission's direction. The overall assessment is despite the color issue, the project improves the condition of the property, removes non-historic elements, reveals original craftsman features, uses materials compatible with the district, and does not diminish the historic integrity of the district. So at this time, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the CEQA exemption under Section 15301, modify finding 2 to state that structure could be considered a non-contributor rather than is classified as. 3, provide direction on trim color relative to the earth tone requirement. And 4, approve HDR 26-01, subject to the conditions of approval in Attachment A, or as modified by the Planning Commission. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and the applicant is also present this evening.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your updating us on the modifications to the staff report and also addressing that concern, which I also had about that, the possible color with the trim and our desire to have more earth tone colors for our structures throughout the city and in our historic districts. I don't have any questions for staff at this time. How about either one of you?
No.
Questions about the staff report? No. Okay, so you mentioned that we do have the project proponent here. And at this time, we'll open it up. So the applicant is here, or the owner? Hi. If you would step up to the podium, and this is your opportunity to introduce anything else that you'd, or tell us anything else about the project. The staff report and is pretty clear. Also, before you get started, I want to thank you on your submittal. It's beautiful. We don't always get this level of detail. And someone you know is really good with computer graphics. I actually thought you'd already done all the work. I looked at that one. I was, this is after the fact. And then I do need to acknowledge I drove by. I'm fairly familiar with Clay Street, and so when I saw the original picture, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. I thought, they've already done the work. But kudos to you, and a great job presenting what you intend to do.
Thank you.
So good evening. And you are, if you would state your name for the
My
record.
name's Amanda Bernavage.
Good evening.
Good evening. That was very thorough. Thank you. So I don't have more to add. As far as the trim color goes, if there's a opposition to that, there were other options for like almond white or things like that. And so I don't know what the process would be to get that approved, if that's something that we can move forward without having to wait.
Oh, definitely. And it's something, well, I'm glad you're open to that. So I looked at the, on your development submittal, we've got the flagship brown is circled, and I noticed that there's an almond, and I can't see what it's, mystery something, right above flagship brown on the color samples.
Yeah, would that almond be would that be appropriate?
I think so. Do you have that in front of you, Kurt? Can you see that color? You can take a look at my computer. But it is just, it's almond. It's kind of off-white. There's the glacier white that is proposed, and there's almond, and then there's this other one. I don't know what the name is, but those are not quite as bright a white that I think they're willing to change out that trim for. So.
I defer to their discretion.
Yeah, we definitely can hammer that out tonight for your project.
Okay,
So
great.
it wouldn't be any further delay. One question before I give up the microphone is, you're doing so much work, no roofing. You're not going to replace the
You
roof?
got very lucky.
Okay, so the
in
roof
the
stays.
roof, you can't see from the street.
No,
so
you
it doesn't
can't.
have like an impact on the color, because that was, you want them to not look bad with
I'll
each
just
other.
say, my concern is, well, for the structure, you got to have a
Right.
sound roof, so you believe it's in good
It has
condition.
a lot of moss that needs to be cleaned off, but
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, the roof inspection was good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm very aware of these the soffit and the roof. These are wildfire defensible space issues, and so when it is time to replace that roof, there are so many materials that are fire hazard rated,
Better.
classified. And yeah, in your case, you're right, we can't see that from the street, but I just wanted to advise you that, when that comes
I see, yeah,
time,
for safety.
yeah, the fire safety, you'll get that Class A roofing material. You'll have plenty of options.
Yeah.
But, I was just surprised with all the other work that you
I
have to
know.
do.
We
that-
needed one
That wasn't
win.
included.
We needed one win for this project.
All right. So roofing, and anything else about that? I think we're really clear on your big scope of work. Any questions for the applicant?
I think the questions I had was about the history of the building. What do you know about the history?
Only what was on the MLS. I actually was not even aware it was historic when we bought it. It wasn't disclosed to us. If you can see on page 2, when you look at the surroundings, who's to the left, who's to the right, who's across the street from us, because the historic boundary is my side of the street, the opposite side of the street is not historic. And so those homes are built, in 1989, 1957, and they don't have that look that you'd expect. So it really took us by surprise. It's definitely a diamond in the rough. The house has been, a lot of work's been done to it over the years that's also clearly not been probably approved. I'm not sure. I don't know if, that if back in the day, I think that asbestos siding was put on before there was a historic planning commission, because that was probably put on in the 70s, early 80s.
Possibly, yeah.
And so, the options are limited when you have to start talking about either abating that or covering it, encapsulating it. So that might be why the vinyl ended up on the house itself. So yeah.
But you're going to pull all of it off.
We are either going to tear down or encapsulate, because the product we chose, we might be able to do encapsulation, because the cost is, I have it in there that will address it, whatever's required of us, but the cost is extreme to have it abated, so.
There's environmental impact if you can encapsulate it, keep it in place.
Right, exactly, and that's the standard.
Hauling it off someplace.
Yeah, the standard is leave it be.
I guess I was also going to ask, did anybody give you information about how to search the history of that building besides multiple listings?
No.
I'll tell you, there is the historic guidelines in Grass Valley, for example, has a page that gives members of the public like yourself tips on how to do that. For example, you can go down Saturday to the county museum and look for photographs of the property. They're 4x6 cards. Now, obviously, you don't have to probably do that here, but when you make those kind of changes, it adds to the value of the property and to what you've got, and it's interesting
Absolutely,
for some people. But that's one way you can do it. You can get it done for free. You ask them questions in writing, and they'll look it up for you.
Oh, cool.
Same thing for 1848 gold down here in the old post office building. Ask them. They got a whole research library. It's interesting. You never know what's happening. We get a problem because over the years, buildings get changed, and they get changed at times when the regulations are lapsed and slow, and lots of things get done. So we don't really know, looking at that building, what it was and what it could have been.
Yeah, after we found out that it was historic, we were shown, the website for Placerville's historic districts. And so the ones that are on the inventory, those have some more history that's available in photos and things like that, but
The
ours
problem,
doesn't.
just to let you know, for that inventory is it will tell you that it's incomplete, it's filled with mistakes, and it was described in the papers as being just a start. So that's why it's at best a rough guide.
Right.
But I appreciate your efforts. Looks nice.
Yeah, I do too. I want to thank you for being so sensitive. I don't know when you chose like the siding and the overall look, but it is true to what you had, the look of the house. So if that's at all accurate to what it was originally, you're carrying through that look. And just to look at your rendering of the final product, it's just such an incredible improvement. So thank you for being sensitive and having taking time to design it properly. And right now I wanted to say something about our inventory, and I'm looking at the map where we're showing our parcels in this particular historical district, and it really is a mess across the street. And then actually, I know for a fact down on Simon Drive, there are a couple of residents. There's one that's not even a residence. It's included in the it's in the district, but it is a cinder block building that I used to work in, and it may be historical. It's old. I don't think it's historical, but we did our best as a city to include all the important structures and parcels in our historic districts, and we just all have to be patient and appreciate you realizing that when it was brought to your attention. Even though it wasn't disclosed when
Yeah.
you bought the property.
I think it's a good boundary, when you look at everything that's on the inside of that boundary. I think it's an appropriate boundary, and we definitely want to. We were excited when we found the home, but then we found out it was historic. It's exciting, a little nerve-wracking when you
Yeah,
didn't
that's
know.
good to hear. That is
But we're
really-
excited, and then it's so to just create something that at the very least doesn't detract from the historic charm.
And I just took another look at the color palette that you provided, and I think what we will recommend, if it's okay with you, to just work with staff on the absolute final color of the trim, because we're looking at these little tiny samples, and so I think maybe what we could do is just advise staff to follow our development guidelines that say earth tones, and you work with staff to choose something that you both that fits this goal of ours for not the bright white, but something a little off white, but that you're still satisfied with, because you're
Absolutely,
doing
okay.
so much work on this house, and we want you to be happy with it. So hopefully we can work out that compromise.
Sounds good.
All right. Anything? We'll let you sit down now. Thank you so much for coming down here and taking time to talk to us. It always it's great for us to have our questions answered. Would anyone else in the audience like to speak on 9.4, this historic design review? Okay. I'll close the public comment portion of the hearing and bring it back to the commission for possible action. Comments?
I'll just kind of agree with the general tone of what you guys have said, that I think this is a fantastic example of maintaining our historic inventory without holding homeowners to unachievable goals while still focusing on keeping the charm and the vibe of the district. And I really appreciate the homeowners being amenable to doing that. I agree that we shouldn't pick a color for her. I'm not a paint picker myself. I'm terrible about it. And so I'm loath to just like stick her with almond if that's not where she wants to go. I'm sure it could look great, but I'm totally comfortable with them working with staff to find a happy medium. Like I said, I agree that it keeps the similar look to what's going on. This is what I've been talking about, in that if we don't allow homeowners to maintain and upgrade their homes within reason, then they go away anyway. So I think this is a wonderful example of the goals that we've had for our historic district homes, especially those that are quote unquote non-contributors, which I still think is a super important thing for us to finalize. Just a short list to have that be clear. And yeah, I don't have any feedback except to say thank you as well for the wonderful development packet, and that I think this is a great project.
Agreed. I looked at the findings, and in the past, when we've had these kinds of projects come before us, we have tried to hammer out findings specific to the project. And I think for this, I really appreciate the work that staff did. I think you've covered, especially in number 6, talking about our facade treatments, materials and finishes, and so on. How this really is. in this case, we're not, we don't even know what original was, so the idea of actually finding something that is the same material, we don't have that information. So I think they've done an excellent job getting some things that are compatible, and again, emphasizing that the city's interest is the view from the street and how the aesthetic of the whole area, and we're really nailing that in this project. Also, because you mentioned the non-contributor, I appreciate staff went back and made the change in the finding number 2 that says that the historic district could be considered a non-contributor. I think we need to start specifying that in our findings. So that's, I think that's very important. I appreciate that minor amendment. It seems minor, but I think it's important because what you said about that work of identifying each and every one of these contributing and non-contributing structures within a historic district. So any other concerns about the findings or how we move forward with this? And I appreciate your comments too about,
I know about your concerns about color. Here's one of the interesting things that Ms. Sylvester and I discovered when we went on a tour last year in that area. There was one home, it was Victorian, so it's not comparable, and we don't even know what your place was. But this Victorian house actually had a bunch of photographs taken over the years of the front of the building. The color combinations had changed. Now, they were all accurate, and this is a Victorian structure. So there was 3 or 4 different paint colors each time, different trim and so on, gingerbread, corbels, the whole works. So the difficulty of giving advice about colors is we don't know what this was. And that's kind of frustrating because all we can say is you've done a great job given what you know.
Mm-hmm. And yet we don't have a color palette, in newer developments, you hear that term color palette, and you're limited in a range of colors and trim colors and so on. And the city doesn't go to that detail, but we do have this mentioned several times in our codes and our development guide that we're looking for things that are more earth tone, and so that's about as specific as we
Right.
get as far as requiring a specifying color. All right. Anything else? All right. Can we have a motion?
I'd be willing to make a motion. I just want clarification to make sure I'm not missing anything. I'm going to update the finding number 2 to say could be classified as a
Has
non.
been.
Oh,
It got revised and uploaded to the website.
oh, okay, my bad. I just
No,
did
you
not
just-
see that.
you had
Okay,
the
so
old-
no updates are needed. Okay, great. Okay, so then I will make a motion that we make the following findings in support of HDR 26-01 request as listed in the staff report items 1 through 6, and conditionally approve HDR 26-01 located at 2896 Clay Street based on the project information and findings included in the staff report and subject to the recommended conditions of approval included in attachment A of the staff report dated May 5th, 2026. And I don't need to make any reference to the color discussion, you guys.
I don't know if you want us to amend condition number 1.
Okay.
Under I, so it states the approved plans are as follows: the applicant's submittal package, historic district review application, site plan, and photographic elevations dated April 27th, 26. And so I was proposing language with an amendment to the trim as determined by Development Services staff, consistent with the development guidelines.
Okay, so I'd like to update condition 1I, to direct the applicant to work with staff to update the color palette to match the development guide with regards to earth tones.
Very good. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Appreciate that minor amendment. That just takes it so that it doesn't have to come all the way back to Planning Commission. And I think we've all kind of talked through it. I think we're on the same track. All right. Please call the vote.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Lepper,
Aye.
Chair Keeney.
Aye. All right. It's 3-0. And all decisions, I haven't mentioned this tonight, all decisions made by the Planning Commission are appealable in the next 10 days to City Council. But this is a great project. I don't foresee any problem at all. And I want to wish you the best of luck. Again, you have our thanks for coming down here and talking to us, and also our thanks for a wonderful project. Thank you so much, everyone. All right. So we'll move on. We have no continued items, no new business, and we'll move to 12, which is matters from commissioners and staff. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Kendrick for staff reports.
I don't have any updates tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I need to get a low profile.
I know.
Actually, maybe move the buttons up here. I like my big screen. So, 12.2, Planning Commission matters. Anything from the Planning Commission? Issues that you've learned at conferences, workshops, webinars?
No.
Silent. Okay. I did have one matter that I'd like to bring to staff's attention. I don't know if we can do anything about that, but since we are now required to use our personal computers, I would appreciate being added to the city's license for the Adobe software. I'm using the free version. It's a little clunky. I was able to add my notes and comments, but that would be, if we could be added to the license. And part of the problem is I keep getting pop-ups telling me that I really need to upgrade to, the pro version. So if that's something that could be done affordably, I would appreciate it.
I can certainly work with IT and see how many licenses that we have. But we are bringing forward a structural deficit in the budget, so we are really tightening up. I mean, everything. We're rubbing pennies together.
Okay.
So I'll get with IT and just see if we have any available.
I'd appreciate it if we could just add those of us, you don't have Adobe software, do you? Catherine said she does for her work, and I don't know if Alyssa does or not. But
I don't, but I can function if it's an
Yeah,
issue
if
with
it's a-
licenses. I'm
yeah,
fine.
I can definitely make the free version work for sure, and maybe in future years we can have that luxury.
We're flush with cash.
When we're yes, shortly. Right. Anything else? All right. If not, then it's 7:13. Actually, I think under our new rules, I need a motion to adjourn. Is that right?
Second.
I'm making a motion to adjourn, and
Second. Third.
I have been seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Good night. We'll see you on the 19th.
Good night.